Hi, everyone. Welcome back to CAHS Career Prep, where we talk all about how to get you ready for a career in arts, humanities, and social sciences. I'm Nicole McDavid, and in today's episode, we will be talking all about portfolios and websites deep dive. This is a concept we talked about before, but we are going even further to get some really great insights into how to set up your portfolio, different websites you should look at. And to discuss this topic, we have professional Allison Richter here with us today. Allison Richter is the creative director with Flourish. She graduated from UAH with a degree in art studio graphic design. She has experience in logo creation, brand identities, and various design projects with a strong foundation in print production. We are so excited to welcome Allison today to talk more about portfolios and websites. All right. Well, it's great to have you here today, Allison. And we are so excited to talk with you about portfolios and websites because I know you have quite a bit of experience in that area. So we'll jump into the questions, but feel free to talk beyond those and discuss as we go through with different things that you think of. So,
Great, thank you.
yes, thanks for coming too. So, what key elements do you believe are essential in a portfolio or website to effectively showcase work and skills for designers?
I think some key elements that are really what's most important about showing in your portfolio or on your website would be what type of projects you're actually interested in working on. So one of my main recommendations would be don't put every project that you worked on in school. Say if you're just straight graduating out of college, looking for your first job in this field, I would recommend don't put everything that you worked on because you probably worked on just a very wide variety of items throughout your classes, right? And putting everything on there to see could be a little bit of a miscommunication about what you want to work on or where your skills lie. So, what I would recommend is really consider what you want to do, what you want to pursue, where your strengths are, and show those pieces. So, and another piece of advice I would give is don't be afraid to tweak those items. If you got some criticism back in class or possibly speak to other professionals, meet other professionals in the field, speak to them, get critiques from them, and they can help you improve those pieces. They don't have to stay. I was under the impression a lot when I first graduated, this is what I turned in, so this is what I need to show. I don't think you have to do that. I think you can improve some of those items and then display them.
Yeah, that's great. That's such great advice because I think, especially for students when they're kind of in that mindset when you're in college, it is that kind of finality almost of the project. Like, okay, this is what it is at this point. So that's so great the idea that you can kind of continue to work on it, get that feedback, and take that forward with the particular project.
Yeah.
So with that idea, how do you create that balance in creating kind of a cohesive theme or style throughout your portfolio for what you're showcasing to a particular client or for a job?
So creating a cohesive style, yes, would definitely lead your audience through your site or your portfolio to really get a grasp on where your skills are, what your strengths are, what you want to pursue. And so I would create an outline before you even begin working on it, whether that's writing it down in an outline form, drawing it out on paper, drawing it out in a design program so you could kind of see the format of how you want items to look and what you want the navigation and the design to be. And that way you can go ahead and have this style starting to form and a cohesive, navigation through the portfolio and through your site start to really form and take effect as far as showing and communicating the pieces that you have strength in working on. So if I'm I'm more interested in branding, logo design, branding identities. I'm going to show those kinds of items and maybe stay away from things that are a little more illustrative. That maybe, yeah, I do have a couple pieces like that because I worked on them through school or whatever. But if that's not what I want to continue to pursue, if that's not relevant to some of the jobs I might be applying for, maybe leave those items out and create a cohesive story through your portfolio.
That's great. So editing is so important in putting that together for sure. So how do you, kind of going back to what you talked about before, when you're going into an interview and you're kind of trying to figure out how to tailor your portfolio for that job or for the particular client, what are some things that students can do to prepare themselves for that editing and that tailoring process?
Yeah. Yes, back to like really considering what style you have and what you want. So really finding some inspiration. I know it can be difficult. It can be a little daunting and overwhelming to begin to design these, especially if web design isn't your strength. I know that that was the case for me early on in my career. Is web design was not my strength, and it was a little overwhelming to try to start to put together something like this. Um, so think about it from the perspective of what type of work you do. Like, again, back to if I am interested in branding, identities, all of that kind of thing, maybe design it in a style that's more of what your strength is. And that way it speaks to that itself. It speaks to your strength itself through setting it up that way so that it looks like that, rather than trying to force a look or a style out of your work that maybe isn't what you are trying to communicate to your audience.
Yeah. Kind of bouncing off that, this is not one of my included questions, but I just thought of it and I thought you'd have a good insight about it. When you're looking at organizations, so if you're interviewing with, several organizations, what are some ways that students can get an idea of what that organization's like style or brand is and how they fit in with it? What are some kind of research things that they can do to get a better idea of
Yeah.
that?
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Definitely before you apply or as you're in the process of applying to some of those organizations, I would look through their website, read every bit on their website you can find. They usually will have some case studies posted as far as the work that they worked on. So even in your cover letter or in your email to them to apply for the position, you can refer back to some of their projects that they've created. That will definitely show some drive and some initiative that you've taken to research that company. And that would be a flag for me as far as, oh, they know a little bit about me too, as far as a person who might be interviewing them. They referred to some of my work that I've displayed on our website. They've done their homework. They've done their research as far as they know who they're talking to. They're not just out sending 30 applications every day to, everything that's listed on LinkedIn. So they've actually done their research, done their homework. They can refer to my projects and then maybe link that back to some projects that they worked on. I see you worked on project A. If you'll see project A on my site, it's very similar to yours as far as my strengths align with what you're looking for at your position. So that would be that's absolutely great. Yeah. A great way to get started in that and start that conversation with a potential employer or a potential client.
Yeah. Yeah. Making those connections are so important, especially when you're going to apply for multiple jobs, because it can become very like quickly where you're just like putting in resume, but like
Yes.
making those connections are so important.
Yeah. And realizing that the job application process, I know it is so overwhelming, especially when you're getting started, don't really know what path you're going to start going down or how to get started on that path. Really just break it down into simple pieces. Create a schedule for yourself. This week I'm going to create my portfolio and I'm going to search for jobs on this site and maybe mark out a few things. And then a few days later, create on your calendar, I'm going to apply for job A. And I'm going to really focus on that application and focus on writing something in my email to them that really speaks to them as far as doing your research on it. Google the company, see what work they've worked on. What does their PR look like as far as their relations with the community? You know, you can speak to things like that. Speak to their public service projects. Maybe that's something you want to get involved. I mean, I know that's a step away from, you know, design or illustration or whatever your forte might be, but that's highly involved with getting these jobs, is speaking to public projects and how these companies work with the community. You know, that's such an important part of working in our community these days, especially here in Huntsville. So many of these companies are focusing on their community work, and that's a huge thing to step into and speak to when you're applying to these jobs outside of just your design skills.
Yes, and that's so true. And I think that that really speaks to the nature of how the field is moving in
Yeah.
so many different areas. It is, I think for maybe a long time, it was maybe like, there's like this box, like you graphic designer box, social
Mhm.
media box, then a public
Mhm.
relations box. But now it has become so integrated in many ways, and
Mhm.
being able to like do a multitude of different things within
Right.
an organization. So being able to show that you have that range, I think is really important.
Yes. Yeah, that is super important. And that's something that you can show on your portfolio. Back to the outline of your portfolio, you know, creating some subcategories as far as, well, here's my work in actual graphic design. Here's some work I've done on social media, whether it's promoting myself, promoting an organization that I work with, promoting a public service that I've worked on with this group of people. And then, you know, I don't know, like we said, uh, PR stuff as far as, you know, maybe this is how I perceive the organization that I work with, and how we get our name out in the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of with that in mind, with kind of showing those different facets, how would you suggest to students, like in setting up your portfolio, because you have so many options of things, you can create videos now, you can do different
Yeah.
interactive things. I feel like every single day they're adding in something to some website of something new that you can do. And
Yeah.
so how would you suggest students handle that in creating their portfolio? Like, is this like a less is more approach, a more is more kind of, how do they navigate what to put in and include when you have so many different options?
Right. Yes. And yeah, that's a great question, because you can have a maximalist style. Okay, I know that I lean towards that a lot. Is I like lots of color, lots of vibrant objects on my designs, and lots of informational pieces on there, and that can be your style. Or maybe you're more of a minimalist and you want like lots of white space and lots of areas to kind of rest and look in between, a lot of negative space in there. So those are things to be considered as far as really what speaks to your style. Because like we said before, really make your portfolio reflect your style itself. As far as, don't try to fit yourself into a box, because yeah, templates on Squarespace or templates on Wix or whatever site you're using, they're very easy to fall into, and they're very helpful to get started with people like me who maybe web design isn't what you're going for, but you have to do it to create this piece, right? To show your other work, to show what you're actually interested in. Yeah, letting your style really speak to what it is, as far as, am I a maximalist? Am I a minimalist? Do I like, you know, everything centered or left aligned or asymmetry, you know, things like that is what to consider. And that goes back to creating an outline, deciding what you want to do before you get overwhelmed by trying to jump in and begin just by doing. So really forming a plan for yourself.
Yeah. With that idea of the plan, when our students are working through their college career, one question that I think they consider a lot is, where is the best place to display what I'm doing while I'm doing it? So
Right.
what kind of, in your opinion, would be best practices for them to do? Set up a website, go on social media, like what are what are kind of their options of what you think would work well?
Right. Yeah. That's a great question too, because there's so many different options. You can, one thing that I would say, like having a social media, an Instagram or a whatever that you choose as far as social media to display some of your work is great. That's a great way to like casually refer back to something. Would I say that's a good substitute for a portfolio for a job interview? No, I wouldn't really say that, but have a link to it there. Have a link in your bio to refer back to that website that you've created or the portfolio site that you've created. Um, Behance, Dribble, there's so many types of places like that where you can go and display your work in a more formal type of portfolio setting. Maybe a website is too much for you to handle right now. Get on Dribble, get on Behance, get on some other type of portfolio driven site, and then you can provide that link to people as far as in your resume or in an email for a job application. And that can really help you get off the ground and get running. If I know website, design can be expensive. It can be daunting and overwhelming to try and put that together. So some of these other sites are a great way to get started and get your designs out for people to see.
That's great. That's great advice. And with a website, let's say a student does decide to set up, a website. A question that I have had in the past in talking to students with that website information is when you're putting things on the website, especially with graphic design, how much of it should be your own? How much of it can you incorporate outside elements? Kind of what are the best practices for that? Because I know like when you get into the design kind of realm, it's a little bit tricky. It's not like if I was going to go create a website, I'd have no problem using a picture from Canva because people know I'm not creating that picture for sure.
Right.
But, when students are doing it from a, design perspective, how do you kind of balance that? And also, if you're not using things that are your own, how do you make sure that you appropriately reference that so that it's ethical?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a great question too. Yeah, if there's a need to put something that doesn't belong to you, definitely cite that. Cite the source, cite with a caption or a footnote or something that shows, this portion does not belong to me, but this portion is what I'm trying to view here, or by utilizing the captions or some side text or something. I love the idea of writing a little bit about yourself, like back to a bio and creating a story that flows along through this site. Like, okay, here's who I am. Here's my story. Here's how I got started on this path and why I want to do this. See some of my work below and throughout the site, and then like write about the work. Here's a project I worked on. Here's why I did it. Here's who came to me. Here's their story. Here's, what the connection is there for them. And here's my process and how I got through it. Those are all, as a person who would be interviewing and looking at your portfolio, I would love to read more rather than just see a picture. Here's what I did. Here's something I created. I would love a little write-up about, not a full chapter, but a little write-up about here's my process, here's the story, here's the connection of why it might be relevant to you or it might be relevant to this organization over here. That can really help to differentiate, like, yeah, I might have to use a mock-up picture to display this thing that I worked on. The mock-up, the picture of the paper on the desk that I put my logo that I created on doesn't belong to me, but the logo is what's mine. And you can set that up, maybe a carousel of pictures. Here's a flat image of the logo that I created, but here it is in action, showing it on a mug, on a hat, on a shirt, things like that. Yeah, you didn't take the picture of the model wearing the shirt, but that's okay. We know what you're looking for. As long as that's obvious to the viewer of what we're looking at, make things very plain. Like that's what my recommendation would be, is to make things very clear as far as what are we looking at. We're not looking at the photography skills, we're looking at the logo you created. And that would be very clear from your caption, from your headline, from maybe a story that you write about it. And there's so many sites as far as Again, you may not be skilled in writing. I wasn't for a long time. That takes some time to improve. That's not what we went to school to learn, right? And we didn't have to write a whole lot about that in school, right? So there are so many sites as far as like some of the AI tools that are coming out these days that can really help you with that. Create an outline of, again, of what you want to say. This is the project I worked on, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. This is what I did. Here's my process. Here's the end result. And you can use that, plug it into some type of AI tool that can help you write that in a more cohesive way. I will say, don't copy and paste straight from the AI tool. Really read through that, put it back in your own voice. Don't lean on that too heavily, but it's a great way as people who might not be a writer can still tell their story through the writing about what their visual pieces are saying about them. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
definitely. And I think it's such a good idea, just an idea generator that you can get. For many times for students when they're, going to create something, that beginning process of figuring out, okay, what do I want to say? So sometimes just having even that little boost of like putting in all your scattered thoughts into, a into an AI generator to get like an idea, and then taking from that and writing it on your own can help you to get started. It can kind of help get over that writer's block, if you will, that
Yes.
starts out when you're trying to figure out, what am I actually trying to say about this?
Yeah. Yeah. What am I trying to say? What do I want to say about this project? Or how do I even get started talking about it? Yeah, definitely like put an outline down, get down some notes about, well, what are the main points that I want to say? And then you can add in the layers as you go.
Yeah, definitely. So going into kind of what's current, there's always things in design that are trending, um, that are new. I always think, in my mind, I always think of like that every single year we have like the Pantone color of the year, and they're like, here it is, right?
Yeah.
And it's like this is the color, and so I think about that with current trends and those sorts of things. How do students work through that in what they want to do in keeping up maybe with the trends, but also keeping it true to their style? How do they balance that?
Yeah, yeah, I love that question because that's something that I love to explore daily and yearly. And what I mean by that is I have found so many designers that I like to follow on socials, whether it's on Instagram or TikTok or signing up for their newsletters. And that way I can get their information. What are they thinking about the current trends, or what current trends are coming out that they're going to start talking about and exploring? And I can watch them start to explore those in their own pieces on their site, on their Instagram. And then I go, oh, well, that looks interesting. That's something I want to, take a look at and pursue. And maybe I can incorporate that into my work. Um, you know, Daily social media, scrolling through that, like find the designers that you like, whether you like a web designer, whether you like a video designer. There's all kinds of them out there that are popular, that are looking through all these new trends for you and really exploring those ideas so you can watch them go through the process and then explore it in your own style after that. Another great way, I love following Adobe. Like I love Adobe programs. That's what I use in my work. And so I follow their newsletters, and then also Adobe Max every fall. They have a great conference that they do. And I love to, ever since COVID, they have started offering the online version for free. So as long as you have a subscription for Adobe, you can attend the virtual classes as far as what the upcoming trends are, what the sneaks are of what they're working on for the upcoming years, as far as like what the programs might be utilizing. We were hearing several years ago about all the AI tools that are coming out now that are becoming actually incorporated into Photoshop and Illustrator. They were talking about those 1, 2, 3 years ago through the Adobe Max conference. So you get excited about those things, you know what's coming down the pipeline, and you get started getting ready to get involved in those trends.
Yeah, I love that idea. And especially for like students like getting into that professional development and those sorts of things. So kind of with that idea, as students are, getting to this point that they're getting ready to share their portfolios and going back to what you talked about before with like meeting with professionals and things like that. So what are some things that students can do as they get towards the end of their college career? They're getting ready to maybe either do an internship or apply for jobs. What are some different things that they can do to kind of network and share their portfolio either in person or online to get that messaging out? Because they may have the social media created or website, but what are some things in your opinion that would help them to connect out to actually start sharing that information?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Great. I love that because I am so involved with a few organizations around town, and I would love to see more new faces around these organizations. Get out and meet people. Go to the networking events, and meet people. Bring a stack of business cards, with your links or QR codes to your portfolio, or some way of connecting with you further, link to your socials, whatever you want to use to get your name and your style and your portfolio out there. Bring that with you and go to these networking events. I know it can be difficult to make the time for it. I know it can be difficult if you don't know someone there. I know that's a hard hill to climb, but it's so worth it in the end to meet these people. They are so welcoming. So one group I'm highly involved with right now is AAFNA, American Advertising Federation of North Alabama. So we have monthly meetups, learning events where we get together. We have one coming up in June where we're going to be getting together and having some pizza and some drinks and talking shop. And we will be meeting with PRCA, which is also the North Alabama Public Relations group. So we're going to have a double mixer with them. And we would love to have some new faces, new students, people who are still in school, people who are just graduating and trying to find a job. That is a great way to come out and explore, meet new people, and get some contacts in the field. Whether that's, can I share some pieces with you so that you can critique this for me and help me improve my work? Or, shaking hands and like, how can I get involved with the organization? There's job postings on the website. So if you become a member of that organization, that's a great lead in to find jobs. As far as a lot of these organizations will have job listings on their site. They share those kinds of things so much. They work with each other. Hey, you are looking for someone, with this certain skill set. I just met someone last week at our mixer. That's a great way to get to know these types of people. I love meeting people at these events and like, oh, let's grab coffee next week and talk a little bit more about your skills and where you want to go. And can I help you get there? Can you help me, find a new project to work on? I love those types of things. There's a great list of them here in Huntsville, from working with the chamber. They have so many free events as far as how to get involved in the community, both the Madison Chamber and the Huntsville Madison County Chamber. They all have great events like that. There's Huntsville Marketing Professionals, another group that has a lot of free benefits, but also paid versions. There's so many. There's others that I'm sure I don't even know about.
That's so
Huntsville
great.
Young Professionals. Yeah,
Oh yes,
there's so many.
Mhm.
Yeah. And they all have these mixers or these events where, yeah, there's free benefits to some of them. There's some that are paid benefits, but it's worth it. It's worth it to get out there and meet these people, take a stack of business cards, get your name out there, shake hands with these people, have a firm handshake, and really look people in the eye, introduce yourself, have that boldness to really get out there. That will make the impression that you need.
So important. And I think it's so important for not only, kind of building those connections that are needed when you're looking for a job, but also you can become very much, kind of in that mindset that like you're just going on to Indeed or searching through Google or, getting, your feed from LinkedIn of different jobs that are available. And there's other jobs that are being posted that aren't always on there. So it's so important to get out and talk to people in order to find out, what is actually available and making those opportunities. So that's
Right.
great
Yes.
advice.
Yeah, and I don't want to be one like you have to know somebody to get in, but it helps to know these
Helps.
people, to really know the people that are in your same field and form a connection with those people. It's just great for your own personal growth and in your own personal professional growth as far as we connect because we work on the same type of work or whatever. We're both web designers or we're both logo designers or I like illustrative, you like this, maybe we could work together because I have the skills that you need to get this project done. That's such a great way to meet people and to grow your professional career as far as meeting these people and getting to know them and continuing to connect with them on a monthly basis.
That's so great. So do you have any last words of wisdom for students about portfolios or websites that you'd like to share?
Yes. Oh, I'm just so excited to be able to share what I've learned because I feel like it took me a long time to learn some of these things, and I just want to be able to share what I'm looking for and what I have experienced with young professionals because it's hard to get started. It's really difficult to get out of college and feel a little overwhelmed about where do I go from here? What do I do now? And there's so much that needs to already be done as far as creating my portfolio, meeting people. I didn't know any agencies in town. I didn't know anybody who was hiring for any kind of in-house marketing or design work or anything. So really getting out and meeting people, it's scary, but it is so worth it because you'll make so many great friends. I've made so many great friends in these professional groups that I have joined that I never would have thought that I would. And then on top of that, really explore and find your style. So find your inspiration online, whether it's through social media or whether it's through Dribble or Behance type of websites where you can really scroll through, find the style that you like to work on so that you can explore that. There's sites where meant to also mention that there's sites where if you feel like you don't have enough to fill your portfolio, like we were saying before, don't put every project that you worked on in college. Well, I want to focus on logo and branding design, but we only did 2 projects like that in college, and I feel like I need more for my portfolio. I can't really come up with ideas on my own as far as what to create. There are so many sites where you can have a randomly generated creative brief that you can work on as if you're working on something for a client. And I would suggest work on that. Go to these groups, get a critique from a professional, work on it some more, email back and forth with them on that project. They love to provide that type of feedback to new professionals. So you can really work that through. Then you have more work to add to your portfolio. Keep it growing and keep finding your style.
So great. Well, thank you so much, Allison,
Yeah.
for being here today to talk about portfolios and websites. And I'm your host, Nicole McDavid, and we'll see you next time for more CAHS Career Prep.